So hello, this is another GMP Detox session. My name is Markus Römer, and sometimes I'm wondering that I still find some new topics for our channel here. I was thinking today about a session on some basic definitions. If you read regulations and guidelines, and for sure it's very important to read them carefully and properly, and to understand the language that you will find there. And one question which is coming up very often is, how should we do the interpretation of should, shall, must, can, if I read that in a predicate rule or in a guideline or something like this. So I shared my screen today, and I hope I can give you a short overview about that topic. So if you have a guideline, a regulation, a rule, a directive, I just opened it here within a document from the US-FDA, part 120, where they have defined shall is used to state a mandatory requirement. Should is used to state recommended or advisory procedures or to identify recommended equipment, for example. This is related to part 120, but these guys have defined shall and should. We come later to a point where we translate it in different other languages. That's sometimes also not very easy. Is shall a must, should, and what is the EMA is doing? So, but again, in US English, you have this difference between shall and should, also in British English, but I just have taken this one here. There is a part number 10 of 21 CFR part, the regulations. This is how the US FDA should write. We have again should guidance documents. You can read it. Guidance documents must not include mandatory language such as shall, must, required, or requirement. So shall in the US interpretation is a mandatory language, a mandatory requirement. In short, should, I see should as a must if I read a regulation. There's a simple kind of thing that you might can remember. Should is a must if you can do it. There was a wonderful article written by a lawyer. I translated that into English. The original is in German. It's from the GMP Navigator from Concept Heidelberg. So in short, the should in European pharmaceutical law is fundamentally considered a must. It's not just a recommendation, but it is mandatory. Anyone who thinks they can do it differently must provide a proof of this. You must have an evidence. You can do it differently, but you should do it like this. In simple terms, read a should as a must. An additional hint to that might be an official website of the United States, for example. It's called plainlanguage.gov. Gov stands for government. That's the domain abbreviation for governmental websites. I think that's also very interesting. Also, if you, for example, write SOPs, that you have a very clear language in that. If you want to give an instruction, and there must be special kind of sentences how to give instructions. If you write something, there should be this and that, and you don't define who is doing that. The only guarantee that you will get that nobody is doing it. So try to use correct, plain language. You might find some help in here too. Let's have a few on some examples. I was opening the Annex 11. I'm a big fan, supporter of the European Annex 11, where you see the application should be validated. I would read it like the application must be validated. If you can, again, give a proof why you should not validate it, and please also remember, if you give a negative, a declining rationale to something, you might be more challenged. So, and here it only makes sense that you validate your applications because you are using it on a daily basis for your businesses and for your quality decisions. So I read here the should as a must. Interestingly, in the European GMP guidelines or GCP GLP, you will not find the word shall, where like we started, that the Americans are using shall as a must. But you will find in European regulations the word must. We will see that later in Annex 16. What I found here also interesting, we might also do a session about that. It's about archiving, where you read data may be archived. This is not mandatory. This is, I take this as an example because it's very often misunderstood, because we might do a session about that the retention period is something else than an archiving system. So you may archive data, but you can still keep the system also in the productive environment. Nobody's saying that you must move it to an archiving system for electronic data. So we might be able to discuss that later. But here it's interesting. Beside of must and should, you will also find may, and that's optional, right? So this is not mandatory. Sometimes it comes a little bit more complicated. I do this session in English, but there's also the German translation of Annex 11 provided by the governmental institution in Germany, the Bundesgesundheitsministerium. And there you see the application should be validated, should have a slightly different meaning in German, but again, here I would read the German sollte also as a must. The application must be validated. You will find definitely also the must in European regulations, like here in Annex 16, just as an example. 1.1, each batch of finished product must be certified by a QP. So the should is not strong enough. So and there's no other way around that. You could maybe think about it, but there's no other way around that. So again, if you read regulations, my magic sentence is read should as a must if you can do it. If you find another way, you must verify it, you must maybe validate it or anything like this. But usually a should is not something saying you can do it or you may do it. A should is definitely a must. So do yourself a fortune and just read it as a must. It's easier if you have good reasons why you can't do that, then you might find another way, but then you must prove that the other way is also working. So should is a must if you can do it. Very simple. US regulations, shall is definitely a must. There's no other option, no other way around that. Should might be a little bit more soft, and then you also have may and can and so on. But this depends then always, as so often it depends, yeah. But a must is mandatory in European regulations. Okay, thanks so much. That was my GMP Detox session of today. Have a great day. Bye-bye.